Alright, we're here at the famous Quickblade HQ for a very special Mondays with the Mad Scientist. Battle of the Paddle Edition. We got the Mad Scientist himself here, Jimmy Terrell. Jim, the biggest sup race of the year is only 5 days away. You looking forward to it?
For sure. The Battle of the Paddle is always a fun one for me, and it's going to be a fun, exciting event from an athlete's perspective and spectator-wise. I mean, if there's good surf, it gets more and more competitive every year. And I think they're looking to have 2 heats, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of heats of 100 guys, and they'll narrow it down to, half of the field for the final. But it's going to be fun for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be big, and obviously with a sport that's growing this fast every year, the level of competition just keeps on rising. But it seems this year it's stepped up another notch entirely. There's a lot of young guys coming through. A lot of the older guard are really paddling well. Have you got any tips for who might make the podium, or some of the dark horses that might sneak through?
Well, I'd say that the top 3 candidates from last year's event are certainly looking strong and to do well again this year with Jamie Mitchell, Connor Baxter, and Danny Ching. Danny's phenomenal in outrigger canoe, and that's really his main emphasis. But every time he gets on a stand-up paddleboard, he does well. And both Jamie and Connor have been paddling well all year, and they're both good in the surf. So I wouldn't count those guys out, as well as some young guys like you mentioned coming up. Kai Lenny from Maui, of course. Some international guys to think about are Jake Jensen from Australia. I know he's been coming up strong and paddling well. Is Casper Steinfath from Denmark. He just got off of a 2nd place finish at the 11 Cities Tour. So he's a young guy, but he's good in the surf and paddles well. Along with our local favorite, Matt Becker, who's a young guy that's really put the extra work in this year. And he's been paddling a lot, racing a lot, and getting around and getting some more experience. And he's been a top 10 guy for a number of years now. And then the international veterans such as Kelly Margetts, from Australia, he's always up in the top 10, and he's paddling well and training hard this year. Eric Darian from France, he's going to be solid for sure. And Bo from Australia is another guy that has been coming up and one to keep an eye on for sure. And then as well as George Constadt from Tahiti, he's been up there and running in the pack, and Fernando Stalla from Mexico. There's a couple other young guys that could be potentially up there for the hunt, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a stacked field. So the men's race is going to be as competitive as ever, but it seems there's a lot of really good women coming through now as well. The women's field's really starting to mature. So you got any tips for the women's race and the elite race?
Well, with Candace, I think if she wins it this year, it'll be 4 in a row for her. She's been paddling well, and I think she's really been, at least in the last month or 2 from what I can see, starting to step up her training and get ready for the Battle of the Paddle, as well as Brandy. Brandy's always solid, and she's been right up there in the top 3 the last couple of battles. So I look for both those girls to be strong, as well as a couple of gals over from Maui. Andrea Muller's coming over, and Talia, who just was coming off of a win in Molokai, and she can surf. So and more again, there's a lot of girls that really could be up there, as well as Angie Jackson from Australia. From what I understand, she's training well, and she was pretty solid down in Peru earlier in the year. So I look for her to be in that hunt as well.
Absolutely. And now one name we haven't mentioned is Jimmy Terrell. Is this your 4th or 5th battle this year? Have you done them all?
I've done them all, yeah. From the very first one when Chuck won it, and there was probably a handful of guys out there that first year. Actually, it was a pretty good turnout even in the first year, but compared to what the levels come up, like you said, I think over the next couple of years there, I felt like I didn't get any slower, but my results started to go down the list as everybody else started to get faster. But last year I had a pretty solid race. I think I was 22nd last year in the battle. So I'm looking to get into that final again. And it's one of those races where anything can happen. I mean, I'll be happy to beat half the field, and if I can get up there and run with some top guys for a while, I'll try and do that. If it's surfy, I tend to do better on flatter water races. I really don't spend enough time in the surf to really do well, but I can get a lucky wave every once in a while. That might be able to put me back in the group. So you never know. I'll give them a heck out there while I'm going, at least.
No, I've been watching you on the training track this week. You're going pretty quick. I think you're going to scare a few of the younger guys. Well, that's it. 5 days to the battle. Let's maybe have a chat next week, and we'll see how it went on the weekend. But thanks a lot for chatting to us on supracer.com, and we'll see you at the battle on the weekend.
All right. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Chris.